Good afternoon, Team Woodby. It's Friday the 10th of April. I just want to take a few more minutes of your time to provide some quick answers to some of the questions that we've gotten and also talk to you about our town hall that we're going to do on Wednesday, April 15th. It'll be at 1800 at 6 p.m. and we'll do it virtually through our Facebook and YouTube live channels. So I just want to start off with, we've been getting questions obviously about face coverings. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are volunteering to produce face coverings, a lot of ways for people to get those. You can do it at home. You can make it yourself out of an old t-shirt or whatever you want. There's plenty of guidance out there to do an appropriate cloth face covering. And I'd certainly appreciate all those people who are supporting our community by volunteering to provide those as well. We've also, for our personnel here who cannot comply with the physical distancing, for example, in air traffic control and security, we've also purchased fabric, and we've got our own para-riggers and our tailors producing those for our personnel. So everything that we can do to comply with CDC regulations until the supply system catches up with this. There's a few questions in here. I'll just hit real quick. Or a couple of them kind of lend itself to the recovery process out of this pandemic. We are starting to look at what that recovery process will look like, but the first thing I want to say is that we have to maintain the protocols that we have in place for some time to come. However, it's important for us as leaders and staffs to look at the decisions that are going to come out of the recovery process and be able to articulate when certain things like transitioning the CDC back to the way it used to be and getting those children who were using the CDC back in there. All those kinds of things, that information will come. It's not happening next week. It's not happening the week after. It's going to be a little bit of time still. But we will certainly communicate those decisions well ahead of time so people can understand what criteria kind of goes into those decisions and what those return to policies or maybe even new policies that come out of what life looks like after this pandemic. There's some questions on CYP. Speaking of that, questions about why are we requiring mission critical children and the letter that we required when there's not a written policy. Well, that's because this thing continues to evolve and we are getting policy guidance from our headquarters on these things. But there's not going to be a written instruction necessarily right away. There are execute orders, there's fragos, and there's policy decisions that come through different channels. And so we articulate those things, and our child and youth program staff is working very hard to make sure that we comply with those policies, but provide the services that our mission critical personnel need. And it takes a lot of work and some agility there. There's a couple questions kind of in the safety category. Why are so many of our leaders afraid to be proactive in minimizing the number of people required to be at work? Please explain how such a huge command can go from blue and silver right now to work Monday through Thursday. The way different commands approach things one week might not be the way that it works for the next week, and that might not be the same way that works for the following week, depending on the requirements that are placed on their mission. So please understand that command leaders are communicating as effectively as possible, and they're trying to set appropriate policies to work through meeting their mission needs and taking care of their personnel. So things might change week to week. Certainly those people in the commands might have different opinions of what should work, but ultimately get the feedback to your command leaders, and then we all need to support their decisions as they weigh their mission requirements and taking care of our people and our families. There's one, if it happened that a service member's spouse contracted the virus while they were deployed, are there guidelines in place to assist these families? Would the service member be allowed to return home? So this is where, before people get on one of the airlifts that brings personnel back to Whidbey Island from deployments, they're screened. And so if they're symptomatic or if there's some reason to believe like they've had close contact with a COVID positive at their current location, then they might go through a quarantine or isolation process for a couple weeks before they are airlifted back. So There might be a delay in somebody coming back if they meet that criteria, but so far we've had a few homecomings this week, and the screening process is going well, and then they go into the ROM process, as I've talked about in the past. And also we're starting to see some ROM of pre-deployment, so before personnel go out to the ship and overseas, there's some pre-deployment ROMs that we're working through as well, and one of our units will be starting that here on Monday. A couple other questions here on this one. NEX and commissary masks, are children under the age of 5 included in this? I believe the CDC, and it even says so in the question, CDC says no masks for 2 and under. I've got 8-year-old and 6-year-old boys. They're kind of at the point where if I tell them to wear a mask, and certainly we've talked about it enough that they're in a position where they would do that. I completely understand if a younger child is not going to do it. You're not going to be kicked out of the commissary or the exchange. You just, give it your best shot. If it's not working, do your shopping, take care of business, and then get what you need. But certainly for people who are a little older than the toddlers, then we are expecting people to wear masks. And as of today, the NEX and commissary requires all personnel in there to wear masks. I also have questions here about clarifying, is it 1 cart per family or 1 cart per adult? It is 1 cart per ID card holder, okay? And that is for people over 18 years old. So if you're there with a couple kids who are younger, then no, we're not going to have them have a cart. But if you're with anybody 19 years or older, each person has to have an ID card. Each person gets a cart. That allows us to maintain that 75 cart. And I go to the commissary frequently. I see these policies in place. And so I think our commissary staff continues to do really wonderful things there, meeting our customer demands. Unfortunately, I have gotten feedback recently from the commissary that there are some people taking advantage of the early bird hours who probably shouldn't be. So we are looking at something to provide a little more help in that respect. So we'll figure that out by next week. So those are some of the questions. There's a few more in here. We'll try to get those answered back to the people who provided them. But really, I just wanted to emphasize we need to continue flattening the curve. We need to continue doing all these things that are allowing us to take care of people and families, align with the policies by the federal, state, and local authorities, and also meet our mission requirements. We do have more homecomings and deployments coming up, and so we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. And I'm also expecting that the PCS delays is gonna be delayed as well. So I do expect that will continue. That policy will continue for some time to come. We'll get more information on that in the next few days, I believe. Continue to tell you that our mental health services are available for you. I had a question here about ABA services and things like that. There are telehealth capabilities that have been brought online, so I encourage you to look at our resources on the Navy Health Clinic Oak Harbor Facebook and sites, and on our Navy Life PNW sites for more information on mental health services. So Town Hall, it'll be on these 2 channels, Facebook Live and YouTube Live. That's our plan, and we look forward to you joining us Wednesday, the 15th of April at 1800 on Facebook and YouTube. If you have questions that you would like to send ahead of time, here's some resources for you. You've got the Navy, the NAS Whidbey Island PAO site, and then you can also PM through Facebook, and you can see the other things on there. So please give us your questions. Happy to take them all in and answer them both in writing ahead of time and also through the town hall. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend, and happy Easter. Thank you.